Keir Starmer.
Let's start the podcast with the way that we always do. In your mind, what is high performance?
Well, that's a very good question. And I think, to my mind, high performance is about grind set. You know, for me, leading the Labour Party, I'm waking up at 5 a.m. I'm looking up the dictionary entry for the word important. Then I move on to thinking about important things, like the economy and stacking the dishwasher correctly. Because these things matter. I then move on to thinking about what I want to achieve. A fairer society, the introduction of savoury vapes, cataloguing my printer paper into its various categories by colour, off-white, eggshell, cream, because these small things matter a lot when you're trying to get things right for working people.
Hello and welcome back to this free episode of TF. It is, of course,
the fucking free one, cunt.
It is me. It's Riley. It is an exhausted Milo down in Australia.
Hall boy is at 5:15 a.m.
Youch.
And of course, there is also Alice up in Glasgow, where it's a normal time.
It's the normal time here, which means I'm not so, lethargic. I'm not suffering so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's the global time.
Yeah, later on in the episode, we are going to talk to Dan McQuillan, a lecturer in creative and social computing, and who's written a really interesting book on resisting AI, not just nice AI, but resisting AI. And we're going to talk about that in the context of a, let's say, very self-promoting open letter written by, among others, Elon Musk, various sort of tech grandees, people who quite notably work in AI firms that aren't OpenAI, demanding more regulation of AI, and that OpenAI, please stop developing new models so we can catch up. But before we do all that, we've got a few things to talk about. A couple of one or two things. And there are some things, by the way, that people have been clamoring for us to cover. Yes, we have seen all of the Binance stuff, how they basically had a bunch of their group chats where they said, we're going to commit crime really well, seen by the SEC, which was super funny.
Yeah. Well, that's good. If you want to, commit crime, you may as well do it well. Like, I respect their
It's important to have it
attention to
organized,
detail.
Like, you should be taking notes on a criminal conspiracy, because how else are you going to keep the conspiracy working?
Yeah. We've also seen that Hindenburg has a new report out. We're going to cover that on later episodes.
Being prosecuted under the RICO Act and going, well, excuse me for being a girl boss.
And also, there's various Labour Party developments, such as Corbyn being formally banned from running in Islington North, where all the legal opinions have been that it's because he lost the 2019 election, and all of the media opinions have people in Labour grandees and stuff go on Good Morning Britain or Good Morning Britain. I guess they wouldn't go on Good Morning Britain. The other shows, the shows. They're like, oh well, it was the anti-Semitism. So it's odd what stories get told where and what holds up where.
I mean, I will also say about Corbyn, just really quickly, that we thought for a while that the Labour Party might put in someone with name recognition to be the the Labour candidate in Islington North against him. Just to really avoid throwing someone to the wolves and just to really sort of twist the knife a bit. Instead, what they did was they ran a guy called Praful Nargund, who is a 32-year-old who runs a chain of IVF clinics. So the guy who jerks people off professionally is going to be going up against Corbyn and losing by Ba'ath Party margins.
What?
So that's going to be fun.
He's creating his own supporter base.
Playing the long game, doing the boys from Brazil brackets Labour right, where you're just jerking people off into tubes and being pretty soon this is all gonna multiply out, and then
Jordan Peterson saw a video of this guy at work and was like, oh my god. Please tell me it isn't true.
Anyway, I actually had another bunch of things to talk about before we get to the startup and the interview with Dan.
I obliterated every single one of them by
with a
handing you
rod from space.
A last minute sort of note folded up. I you've seen that picture of George W. Bush being told 9/11 is happening? That's you in your DMs this morning. when I discovered this.
Did Riley continue reading the book for a little while?
Yes, he did. He kept working on the notes, the exquisitely arranged notes for a while, and then sort of yielded to the force of this one news item.
I'm going to give you a peek behind the curtain. It superseded the fact that the UK is no longer doing an NFT from the Treasury. They shelved that project. This has superseded that. That's right. This is from Jezebel. In Friday last week, Reese Witherspoon has announced that she is splitting up with Jim Toth, her husband of nearly 12 years.
Jim Top.
No, hang on. Wait till I get through this whole paragraph, please, because it ends in a way that you won't expect. That's awesome.
I'm at the gym looking for tops.
While other celebrity news has kept us distracted for the past few days, and it certainly has kept me distracted, we now finally glimpse into what may have prompted the end of their marriage. Speaking to Radar Online, at least one insider close to the couple blamed it all on Quibi.
No.
The horrifying effects of long quib.
That's right.
Was it the golden arm?
I think the question is, what state of fright is this? When your marriage
this is the
ends
California
because of Quibi?
state of horror. Is your marriage implodes like a year after because of Quibi?
A 50 States of Fright where it's a guy who just gets skied into by Gwyneth Paltrow and loses his ability to enjoy wine tasting.
So
we should pivot to being a celebrity news podcast.
Yeah, the
We're
celebs
super
are
good
at
at
it again.
The celebs have never been more at it than Reese Witherspoon
true.
and her producer husband
fear
getting
that's
divorced
true.
because of Quibi.
What? How is this
They're at it,
Quibi's?
Jerry! They're at it!
How is this Quibi's fault?
Well, look, I assume that he got so distracted by all of the addictive bite-sized entertainment available on Quibi that he stopped paying attention to his marriage, but we'll read on for fun. So the marriage fell apart as a result of Toth's midlife crisis, which prompted him to leave his successful agency job to join Quibi.
Getting in on the ground floor of Quibs is like a great like midlife crisis thing to do. I'm gonna pack it all in. I'm gonna do Quibs.
You're getting in on the ground floor of the elevator from that movie Devil.
It was either that or buy a TVR Tuscan.
So it's Toth worked as an agent at CAA for years and served a whole roster of A-listers, but left the agency to become head of content acquisitions and talent at Quibi in 2019, which means he made the decision to greenlight 50 States of Fright. This is a man who midwifed the golden arm into being.
Hey, and I tell you what, he acquired some fucking content and some talent. I mean, Sam Raimi directed the golden arm thing. Like...
I mean, I hate to say this, but you said midwife the golden arm into being, and I did just imagine this man pulling a golden arm out of a woman's pussy. So thank you for that.
Yeah, the midwife crisis.
Yeah. Quote, this is from one of the sources.
We're
Leaving
having a midwife crisis.
That would be like a great attack line for a shadow health secretary. I'm wasted doing podcasts. I should be like a spat in the office of whoever the shadow health secretary is. To be like, no, you could fucking get their asses with this one. It's a midwife crisis.
So, leaving his position at CAA to join Quibi was a huge gamble. It sure was. Boy, was it.
Yeah, and playing Zhukovsky rules. He went into the casino.
Put it all on blue.
Yeah. It was not even really an option in roulette, but he managed.
Yeah, he put a blue napkin on the table and said, I think this could win. Or he's hitting on 21, basically. Says, at the time, Reese asked Jim if it was worth the risk, but he says he was up for the challenge and felt confident he'd bring home millions.
Womp. Sad,
Millions.
It says, and that's the other thing, in 2021, so after Quibi had failed and died and stuff, Reese Witherspoon sold her production company for just shy of $1 billion. At the height of zero rates, she did this.
I know zero gravity and everything, but how? What? How did you... Oh, okay, never mind. Okay, so Reese Witherspoon has more money than God at this point. And you know that she couldn't let the Quibi thing go either. Just on the couch, oh, what should we order today? Oh, can we get it on your card because of the $1 billion that you have? And then, it just circles inevitably back to you didn't have to take the job at Quibi, did you? and it just kind of goes from there, you know.
She wanted the
Festering
role
quip.
in The Golden Arm, and he wouldn't give it to her, and she's not going to let it down.
So, by the way, Hello Sunshine aims to broaden perspective and empower women by giving them authorship, agency, and a platform to help them shape culture. It certainly did help one woman do that.
I think I have COVID. None of that means anything. I feel like I've just been hit in the head with a hammer.
Oh yeah, by the way,
like,
if you want to know who bought it, it's Blackstone. Blackstone bought it. Blackstone
okay,
bought
so
it.
like half of all the houses in America and also Reese Witherspoon's like guaranteed income forever.
Yeah, correct. Correct.
Hello Sunshine really does sound like a kind of like an organization that does day trips for the mentally impaired.
I was thinking like thing you get woken up by when you were being arrested by the Sweeney.
Yeah, I was sort of going more of a geezer direction as well. Anyway,
Reese Witherspoon is Detective Inspector John Regan, you know?
So anyway, apparently, Toth was also a founding board member, so he's also richer than God as well. I think they just couldn't get over the fact that he made such an ass of himself that being involved in Quibi that their marriage did eventually end.
Just like in bed, you know, he's got like a sleep mask on. She's reading, you know, they're about to go to bed, and she just goes, "Bury me with my golden arm."
I mean, I do that all the time.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. No, I just love the idea of like Reese Witherspoon like psychologically like bullying this man over his own shitty decision. You know, that pleases me to imagine. For some
There's
reason.
a couple of things I want to talk about before we get into the interview. One of which is, of course, yet again, America's savviest Republicans and some Democrats also have gotten together to question the CEO of a big tech company, but this time with Cold War 2.0 overtones.
Yeah, this was great. Sorry, I'll let you introduce it, but like,
it's very funny.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, right? All tech CEOs should be treated like this, which is to say, insanely racistly.
Yeah. So this is Shou Chew, the CEO of TikTok, a Singaporean, and this is crucial, Singaporean businessman.
Yes, this will be important later.
Yeah. Was being sort of questioned by, again, people, a group I wish included Greg Stubbe. Unfortunately, I did check. Greg Stubbe was not involved in this case.
Yeah,
That's a shame.
He was busy lifting.
Damn shame.
Checking after him, I did find a headline from about 8 months ago. Republican Representative Greg Stubbe waves guns around during virtual hearing on gun safety. Quote, "I can do whatever I want with my guns," said Stubbe, who later on wouldn't clarify if any of the weapons were loaded.
Awesome.
I love him.
Mr. Stubbe is...
Is that gun you pointed at your head loaded? What are you, a cop?
Yeah. I also like the idea that he you can just lie, Greg. Even if they were loaded, you can just say no. But or say yes if that's what you want people to say. Yeah. I'm intrigued by the fact that he wants it to be Schrodinger's gun. Like, he believes it's important to the message.
Yeah, so it preserves an air of mystery.
You know why? I'll tell you why. It's because, like, when Ron DeSanctimonious is eventually crushed under the Trump train and can no longer has enough sauce to be, like, governor of Florida, there's only one man who I think is up to the job, and it's the kind of guy who will point a gun at a computer and then not clarify if it's loaded.
That is true. That is sourced up.
That's true. He's sauced up as fuck.
Greg Stubbe is the most sauced sort of congressional level politician in America right now.
That's true. Yeah. I believe that.
By far. We've been following his career for a long time. We're very excited for him to go up to the bigs. But
American Matt Hancock
big guy.
So
he's incredible, folks. They love him. They want it. You want me to get him out? They don't want me to show you, Stubbe, but I'll do it.
So let's talk about the hearings. And oh my God, Milo's become a ghost. Let's talk about the hearings. So
because this is about TikTok, right? We're going to ban TikTok.
Yeah. So Shou Chew is the CEO of TikTok.
Thank God.
Most of the questioning was basically just saying that the app, which is again not allowed in China, again probably for like wanting to be more on like WeChat style reasons, is being used for control, surveillance, and manipulation of Americans, including children, which is, probably right. But
that's true. Like, this is true of all apps. And this is why I'm like, yeah, we should like treat all tech CEOs in this hostile a way. But the only way America knows how to be hostile to a tech CEO is to be racist. So Yeah, fuck it. Let's do it. You know,
What shall we-
have Dan Crenshaw like ask Tim Apple whether he's a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
Yeah,
Like-
I love the idea of just like so many people in the Senate or Congress or whatever being like so old that they can't even tell what race the tech CEO is. They can't see that far. They're having to like guess. Just a guy doing like rice paddy hat bits at Mark Zuckerberg would be very funny.
Well, Mark Zuckerberg is as Chinese as the CEO of TikTok is, which is to say, not. So, like,
Yeah.
I do think this does create an opening for a certain millennial comedian to be a sort of the perfect tech CEO that will confuse Congress.
Dan Nanan has been appointed to the board of TikTok.
Yeah, can't tell what race he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Richard Hudson, however, a Republican from North Carolina, asked the Stubby question of Chu.
It's an airport paperback. The Stubby imperative.
Because if you remember,
The Stubby gambit.
if you recall, the Stubby question was, how come all of my campaign materials go to spam? Are you de-boosting conservatives in Gmail?
Why videos of me dancing to Harry Styles not appearing in people's For You page?
So there was less of that this time. It was much more like, are you doing what every social media companies does, but Chinesely?
Yeah. Are you like abstracting people's data? Yes. Are you like exploiting misinformation? Yes. Are you like kind of like brainwashing children? Yes. Are you doing all of those things while being Chinese? No, but like,
would you
as far as
say
we're
that
close
TikTok?
enough.
Would you say that TikTok's algorithm acts as a kind of finger trap for children?
So the Stubby question in this case was asked by Richard Hudson, a Republican from North Carolina, who asked whether the app accesses the Wi-Fi.
Oh yeah, I saw this clip.
You know what? Maybe it does, though.
Now, I think
And for this reason, we're about to pass the Restrict Act, I think it's called, which is legitimately no more internet allowed. All social media now banned because, you know, Grandpa wants to know why you're not getting his campaign ads.
Yeah.
So
It's very funny just to turn the internet off in response to like, you know what? No, it was a mistake. It's become Chinese. For that reason, we have to turn it off. It's turning the kids Chinese.
yeah, if you like look at the like actual provisions of this, they're like it's up there with the fucking Patriot Act.
It's sociopathically draconian.
Yes.
Oh, great.
So I actually, one of the examples of something from this bill is that, you know, again, because of stuff like TikTok, directly because of this reaction to stuff like TikTok, you have 20-year prison sentences for like connecting to a VPN that's based in a sort of designated enemy country.
Oh,
Well,
good.
the thing about TikTok is that they're getting it sort of like on a bipartisan basis. They have like no friends in Congress. They don't even have like sort of the tame congressman from California to be like, I think you're an important California business that like, you know, Americans do.
Well, there's no
and so,
congressman for China.
But what we have is
So you have like a lib sort of like anti-TikTok thing, which is you are like stealing all of our data and making our kids kill themselves, which and then there's the Republican like anti-TikTok thing, which is you are stealing all of our data brackets Chinese and making our kids gay, which I don't think TikTok does that.
And of course, with the Republicans, Chaya Ratchik was just there, right, just with banned TikTok shirts. And the only person,
but that's your business model. You can't just be libs of like what. I mean, I've heard of like sort of like shitting where you eat, but this is ridiculous. Like,
but also it's like it goes back to just the fact that that no one can see the difference between TikTok and all the other sort of, let's say, patriotic American mass spying to sell you ads organizations and keep you addicted to your fucking phone. The only person sort of saying, hey, this is kind of weird is Jamal Bowman. And on the other side, by the way, this isn't just happening in America, it's happening in Europe as well. Europe's largest maker of ammunition has claimed that the power demand by a TikTok data center is preventing them from making shells to send to Ukraine. We've brought it all together.
that's beautiful.
TikTok's playing 7D chess here to help the Russians in Ukraine.
Yeah.
just running the like thermostat at like Taylor Lawrence levels purely to try and like abstract electricity. I mean, the thing is, right, TikTok is legitimately terrible for a lot of the reasons that like some of the saner members of Congress identified. And
I've seen Disney adult TikToks. That's a good enough reason to ban it.
Yeah. You spend like half an hour on like, if you just make a TikTok account right now and spend half an hour scrolling the like whatever For You it serves you before it knows anything about you, you will agree that TikTok should also be banned. It's just like the way in which we're doing it, the fact that like we're doing it out of like a bizarre set of like misguided impulses, and the fact that we're also managing to like hook in a bunch more like places for the feds to control the internet and social media, also not ideal.
Yeah. And the fact that, again, this is all a part of a giant push to, you know, I think like it's part of a larger giant deglobalization push, which like I think it takes a whole episode on its own, right? But there is the fact, again, like it's a deglobalization push that's being created by the resumption of Cold War style hostilities between blocks of nations, is a sort of scary thing. And the fact that they need to sever a lot of these links that have grown, information links, for example, right, between different internets of different countries, you know, and the fact that, you know, we looked at the Great Firewall of China and we're like, great idea. Let's do the Restrict Act. Perfect. We love it. Anyway, before we get into our interview, though, I do want to do a quick little startup because this one was fun. It's called Jenny with an I, and I want you to tell me what it does.
8675309. Okay. What does Jenny do?
Yeah. What's Jenny up to?
Give me like something here.
Our mission,
like more than just a name.
Our mission is to usher in a new era of human creativity through artificial intelligence.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Milo, what do you think?
Have any idea how little that narrows it down?
Oh, no, sorry. I have their mission statement. Be bold. We are ambitious and non-complacent. We have a hunger to achieve against great odds, and we believe that making bold bets is better than inaction. Be lean. We use the least to achieve the most and avoid waste and time and resources by directing energy to high-impact endeavors. Be unorthodox. Everyone makes a difference by introducing new perspectives and fighting conformity. We embrace feedback while constantly challenging ideas.
This is like 3 pillars so far.
Yeah. Is it? Yeah, the three pillars of Islam. Is it? Are they gonna? Is it like a Google Home that gives you like wanking instructions in like a sexy voice?
Yeah, of how to create a new generation of Labour right voters in Islington North. Maybe the last of their 4 values might help. So it's values, not a mission statement. Be scholarly. Seeking the truth is of utmost importance. We strive to ensure that our knowledge never stagnates and that our decisions are driven by evidence. So it's scholarly.
Oh, it helps you with essays? It's like a tutor?
Ding, ding, ding. That's right.
Ah, for fuck's sake. Okay, great. Because I just went to like, what's the most precarious job we could automate? Tutors.
So it's not actually tutors. It's for like postdocs and people writing academic papers. It was sort of shown. It was discovered by a friend of the show, Jathan Sadowski, and I just thought we got to talk about this. Yes, that's right. You can supercharge your writing with the most advanced AI writing assistant. Essays, blog posts, personal statements, stories, literature reviews, speeches, etc.
You can supercharge your writing, by which I mean make it sound really stupid.
For the small cost of violating every university in the world's plagiarism policy, you too can make your writing sound worse.
Oh, they actually answer that in their FAQs. Does Jenny plagiarize? No.
Okay, cool.
Thanks.
What are like here's the thing. If I wanted to do this, the first thing I would do would be to like get the imprimatur of like some kind of gullible or like easily bought institution, like the fucking like University of Austin or whatever, you know, Hollywood Upstairs Medical School. I would like get their name on it so I could be like, look, someone's saying this is okay to submit work with. Have they done that, or is this purely like? Well, they have. No, we're just saying it.
They have like Harvard and Cambridge and Meta and MIT and stuff. Like just scrolling the logos across their website. They don't say exactly what their relationship is to these
These
things.
are the logos of some universities. We have the AI compile them, just so you know what a university is.
So it says, did Jenny plagiarize? Jenny strives to generate content that has 0% plagiarism. However, occasionally there may be sentences that Jenny writes that also happen to be on the web, like, for example, all the time. Again, maybe what you've done is, instead of plagiarizing, what you've done is you've taken 4 sentences and then you've created a 5th sentence by mashing the 4 pre-existing sentences together. I would argue spiritually,
even if it's 100% original, it's still plagiarism, because the question in plagiarism is, did you write this named human person? And if the answer is, I put a prompt in for it, then no, you didn't.
So the thing about this, right, is think about, again, like, what is academic writing? Mostly it's something that's done as a kind of ritual to produce papers that fucking nobody is ever going to read. And so now those papers that no one reads are not written by anyone either.
Amazing. I mean, in a way, that is the perfect synergy, right?
No, so what you do, and this is like posted on a Twitter thread by like an AI success guy. He says, okay, go to jenny.ai, type in the title of your article, then Jenny gets you started with the first sentence. And then, if you like it, press the right arrow key to accept. And if you don't like it, you can reset and have an alternative first sentence. And then you can just keep telling it to write with more depth, and so on until it produces an entire paper. Again, and not like just like a class paper, but like something you submit to publication based on AI.
I mean, I'm not going to get like too up myself about plagiarism, in that like there is already a ton of plagiarism in every university course, every, doctoral thesis or whatever, fine. But like, this really feels like a new low.
Well, I think it comes back to, it's less about the product itself and more about what the fact that the product can exist says about the thing that it's acting on, which is how degraded and unfit for purpose is the entire process of like being a postdoc at a university, that your job can be done by autocomplete. And it's fine because no one's ever going to read it. You just have to keep the number of pages beside your name ticking up.
Test out what you really think about thermodynamics by typing thermodynamics is into your autocomplete.
Yeah, but how is this going to work on like sort of the highly technical, less speculative end?
Well,
because
that's the thing. You probably won't, right? This probably would work on like English literature papers, like stuff that's easily...
not to be like a STEM lord or anything, but when the rubber meets the road on like, does this make sense? Like there are places where that's in starker relief, and this is just going to like trip over all of those hurdles.
The peak application for this will absolutely be in business schools. Like in the fucking like organizational psychology department, like fuck me, are they going to be using ChatGPT to write their papers? I feel like spiritually they already are. When I was in the business faculty, my God, did I meet some fucking ChatGPT brain MFs. It did feel like talking to an AI sometimes.
Well, I get this comes back to something we talk about, which is if your thing can be done by an AI, it doesn't mean the AI is good. It means you were already an AI.
Well, yeah, Keir Starmer's speeches, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Anyway, that's all good fun. But I think it's time to hand over to me and Alice to talk to Dan for a little while Milo goes and lies in his bed, puts a little feather on his mouth, and goes honk me for another 2 or 3 hours until it's time to get up.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. All right. So good night, Milo. Nighty night. Sleep well.
Hey.
And
before I go, shows.
I'm
at the Melbourne Comedy Festival until the 23rd of April.
Will you be this tired?
I won't, because it'll be a normal time here, but a weird time in the UK. There are so many tickets. Please buy some or all of them. Also on the 12th of April, I'm doing a preview of a new show, also in Melbourne. If you've already seen that old show and you want to see something else, that'll probably sell out. So grab tickets that weekend. And we're going on a UK tour. We're in Birmingham. We're in Leeds. We're in Manchester. We're in Glasgow. Yeah. Tickets for that are on, if you go to trashfuture.co.uk/events.
Yeah, you'll find it.
It'll be in the show
think so.
notes. Nate will put it in the show notes.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
good like that.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
Tickets are selling, so grab them.
Well, and over to me and Alice. So talk to you in a sec, everybody, and good night, Milo.
Night.
Hello and welcome back to the second half. Milo has trundled back off to bed, and Alice and I are now joined by Dan McQuillan, an academic and the author of Resisting AI, an anti-fascist approach to artificial intelligence. Dan, thank you very much for coming on, and how are you doing today?
You're very welcome. I'm a bit knackered, to be honest, but I'm sure I'll liven up as we get going.
It's the sleepiness episode. Riley was sort of like dead on his feet earlier, and it's fine.
I'll say I really bounced back. I'm no longer feeling ill. I went to the gym earlier. I'm feeling
You're
great.
very energized by like thinking about Quibi.
That's right. And I thought that it would be really interesting for us to reflect on what has very quickly become, I think, one of the pieces of, you might say, the artifacts of the politics of AI. Which is, of course, an open letter that has been written and signed by a bunch of people who have invested in AI other than OpenAI.
Some big names on this. This is like big news.
About the kind of existential threat that two advanced AIs could pose humanity. And just, Dan, as a general starter for 10, so how do you feel about that overall line of argument?
Apart from it being complete rubbish, I suppose we should ask what purpose it's actually meant to serve, and I think it's mostly diversionary. I mean, there are also a cohort of true believers. I'm not sure which is a more dangerous front.
And when we say diversionary, are we suggesting it is sort of like a jingling keys of just like, hey, keep investing in AI, keep on hyping AI. I own a bunch of AI companies and would like everyone to invest in them so I can enjoy the crypto boom again, basically? Or is it something else?
No, I'm sure that plays a part. And, the seriousness of the money that's at play in this business at the moment what was Microsoft's investment in OpenAI was 10 billion. And Google's valuation dropped by 100 billion, when Bard made a mistake in the launch video. So you can't underestimate that kind of money and all the interests that get aligned behind it. But I think there's a lot more going on. There's certainly a lot more going on with AI in general, and therefore this is in which this is subsumed. And some of that is visible in the letter itself, because there are people there. Gary Marcus would be one of them. He's a commentator, a very vocal commentator about AI, usually very critical, actually, of the sort of simplistic AIs become conscious school of narrative. But he's a believer in AI, but he's kind of I guess grounded enough to point out that what's there at the moment, which is this purely this connectionist AI with deep learning and everything, it's just not going to cut it as far as actual intelligence is concerned. He's a believer in real AI, as he calls it. So this letter and the signatures of this letter, they really mingled people who are prominent AI developers, people who believe in a sort of more grounded, sort of holistic route to AI, I suppose, which would be people like Gary Marcus, and out and out zealots, basically, who really do believe in the idea of AGI. Right, so that's artificial general intelligence. That's the superior to human being, planet seizing version of the technology. And those people, that's just that in itself is ridiculous. But a lot of politically aligned beliefs in themselves are ridiculous. What's more important is what goes with that. What does it overlap with?
And I think one of the things that I think we see quite a bit whenever people talk about AI, whether it is saying, and we tend to approach this from the perspective of the companies and the finance involved. And so we tend to see a lot of people saying, please hype my technology. It's so dangerous. It's so bad. Almost in the same way that the sugar cereal commercials would say, like, your mom doesn't want you to have sugar smacks. In the way
Are you suggesting that AI here is Bone Storm?
Somewhat. Which is, AI is too powerful and too dangerous. Maybe too
I'm
powerful.
putting a pound in the Simpsons reference jar that we have here.
Yeah. It's we gotta keep that jar going. Anyway, but that. And what I see quite often is as an elision of general AI and large language models that we have now, suggesting that the large language models necessarily imply a kind of globe-spanning intelligence because they can do email jobs, right? Because they can do things that humans can do to the level of proficiency of someone who's pretty bad at it and kind of bullshitting their way through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. To call them a bullshit engine would be a very accurate technical description, because that's exactly what they're trained to do. I mean, that's the mathematical optimization inside large language models. And I mean, there's a caveat there, which is there's kind of two major chunks of those things inside. One of which is the sort of pure language model, the statistical pattern finding. And then there's a thing called reinforcement learning by human feedback, which is a little bit the magic source of this stuff. But nevertheless, overall, because that also involves a form of machine learning called reinforcement learning. Overall, this stuff is totally based on an optimization of the emulation of patterns of human, well, written text, actually. So, and that's what it is. So it's constructed to sound confident when it does that. So it is literally a bullshit engine.
Yeah, I mean, you see all of the things touting it are like, it passed the bar exam. And it's like, yeah, no one who's ever sort of been a confident bullshit has ever done that.
Right, yes.
So the open letter itself was published by the Future of Life Institute, which is basically one of these like long-termist, effective altruist organizations.
Yeah, all these motherfuckers get too much money and they start thinking they're in fucking Deus Ex. And they're like, oh, we're gonna have to move to the fucking like moon base or whatever.
So signatories include Elon Musk, Steve Wozniak,
Moonbase, yeah.
Yuval Noah Harari, the author of *Sapiens*, Andrew Yang, someone I haven't heard about for a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah, the CEO of Conjecture, which is another AI firm, the co-founder of Skype, the co-founder of Pinterest, another company that's really at the cutting edge.
Sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say this, like the guy who made Google image results like sort of borderline unusable and was rewarded with hundreds of millions of dollars for it. That guy is like right on the cutting edge of like the future of humanity.
Chris Larson, the co-founder of Ripple, a cryptocurrency that is let's say perpetually in some hot water. And then as we've said, like hundreds of others. I think there's 1,600 people have signed it now, including Lawrence M. Krauss, where the M stands for I love flying on Jeffrey Epstein's plane. So we're going to go through a little of this line by line, and we're going to talk about what they're really saying, what it really means, and how we can use it to understand AI, the business of AI, and the implications of AI, especially thinking of it, as we all are, as sort of, let's say, people who would like to take an anti-fascist approach to AI. So the letter begins. AI systems with human competitive intelligence can pose profound risk to society and humanity, as shown by extensive research and acknowledged by top labs. As stated in the widely endorsed Asilomar AI principles, which are, for the purposes of you, the listener, essentially 23 principles that more or less restate what we talked about with Callum Kant on sort of the fair deployment of AI and what that would look like. Advanced AI could represent a profound change in the history of life on Earth and should be planned for and managed with commensurate care and resources. And I'll tell you both what this reminds me of. This reminds me of, for the 2 years that no one could shut the fuck up about crypto, the main thing that like the Coinbase CEO and the Binance CEO and all the bigwig crypto players were saying, regulate us, please manage and regulate us to the state. And that's kind of what I see in this letter, which is, so again, because some of these people are prominent in AI. Musk, for example, right? His whole self-driving thing depends on AI. They're AI CEOs here. And they're saying, we want to be regulated, which it's an echo to me of Brian Armstrong saying the same thing about crypto. I don't know if you see the parallel as well.
I certainly see a lot of overlaps with crypto and large language models particularly, in that they are essentially a kind of pyramid scheme of their own. Yeah, definitely.
I think the sort of like the drive towards like regulators is interesting too, because like on the face of it, you would go, well, why would you want this? And I don't suddenly believe that Elon Musk has become materially an altruist, right?
No, I think you're right. I think it's very notable that they're calling for regulation, and there's probably a couple of levels of that, which is that, one level, a kind of pragmatic thing where large companies can afford to invoke this idea of regulation because it provides a moat between them and smaller companies who can't afford to have reams of lawyers or whatever to provide the purely paper compliance with all these regulations. I mean, that's a pretty standard tactic, and you saw a lot of that in facial recognition. Big companies calling for the regulation of facial recognition. So I think it's a corporate play, but I think there may well be something else as well, which is that and this is where I think I'm totally down with you guys. Follow the money. Absolutely, that's definitely a very powerful way to eviscerate this stuff. But I think, if you like, there's kind of more to it as well, which is power. Power, and I do think that. They're right. The sort of large entities like the EU is very clear. I had for a different purpose, I had to plow through various EU framework documents on their AI strategy recently. And reading between the lines, or not even reading between the lines, it's absolutely clear that they see the whole future of the EU as such entirely based on AI, both for political economy, or at least economically, and also politically, geostrategically. It's EU, China, and USA. This stuff is a matter of power, and so maybe you could say that this wanting to cozy up to the state thing is actually a sort of plea in a way, saying actually we want to be part of you. We are part of you. We're part of the hegemonic power structure. Let us in.
I did wonder about the sort of the political implications of this being, partly that, partly an attempt to sort of have the hands on the reins of regulation by getting in early and sort of flattering egos a little bit and being so obviously attempting to be compliant in a way that makes lawmakers feel oh, this is we can do business with these people. This is they're willing to be reasonable. They're willing to be the adults in the room. For
sure, I totally think that's definitely that again, that's corporate power play or Silicon Valley politics of that nature, of the money kind. But I think there's also I would feel that there's not subliminal, but there's another level to this, which is that people, occupying positions of power across the board, feel, I would say, concerned that the wheels are coming off the current neoliberal system. It's hitting many, many sources of friction at the moment. It's not like the good old days of the late 90s or whatever. And, they're scrabbling around for solutions. Carbon capture and AI. It's like they're looking for something that is amenable to the same kind of pyramidal control, and might give them a good chance of defending the fortress. Literally, in the case of Europe, the AI is their solution to the refugee crisis, apart from anything else.
Well, in fact, I think the other thing that it is it gives you these political pyramids you can control, but at the same time, they're also profoundly deflationary. Both carbon capture and AI, the story that they tell, the economic story they tell is a deflationary one, because what they are able to do is they're able to do more with fewer inputs, which if your returns are kind of now secularly low and there's very little you can do about it, that's one of the ways you can increase your returns, not by having people buy more, but spending less. And so being able to still use cheap fossil fuels while capturing carbon, that's deflationary from that perspective. Being able to automate, being able to compensate for deglobalization, which is inflationary, by using AI, which in the story it tells is deflationary, that's another way you can keep neoliberalism going. It's one of the reasons the late 90s were such a heyday, is because all of these new deflationary forces were really coming into their own and combining together. And we've lost most of them.
Right. I mean, that really, really makes sense to me. I mean, I'd read it something similar. I think I didn't call it the same, or wasn't really approaching it from the same angle. But one of the things that I was going to say attracted me to the analysis of AI, but it's really the opposite, actually. It sort of repelled me enough to want to analyze it, I think, was, it was this obvious application as a method of, increased sort of precaritization, scarcification, particularly of the social contract, but across the board, which basically boils down to the same thing as well, really. I think, it's like trying to keep the game going by putting less into it. And allowing a large amount of collateral damage in the process.
The letter.
I was going to say, I love a sort of like violent retreat.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Yeah.
These things.
Yeah, so the letter,
and to like incidentally set up any other sort of like AI in this space that isn't sort of controlled like along these lines as inherently dangerous, predatory. Like you try and do any of this stuff on your own, and like not just on a commercial level, but on like a sort of a geopolitical level too. You're gonna make Skynet, and that's sort of like everyone should be very concerned about this.
The letter goes on. It says, unfortunately, this level of planning and management is not happening. And even though recent months have seen AI labs locked in an out-of-control race to develop and deploy ever more powerful digital minds that no one can understand, predict, or reliably control. Contemporary AI systems are now becoming human competitive at general tasks, and we must ask ourselves, should we let machines flood our information channels with propaganda and untruth? Should we automate away all the jobs, including the fulfilling ones? Should we develop
non-human... I don't like all of these rhetorical flourishes. Yeah. I'm tired enough that I'm just like, yeah, sure, maybe.
Should we develop non-human minds that might eventually outsmart, outnumber, obsolete, and replace us? To which I have to say, if we're talking about becoming obsolescent and replaceable and having your job taken away and be living in an information environment already flooded with propaganda and untruth, who's us here?
Yeah.
Because there's a very small number of people that aren't already living like that. Like, ask someone who lives in a deindustrialized area if they're worrying about being made obsolescent. Ask someone who's like living in the contemporary media environment if they're worried about their information channels flooded with propaganda and untruth. Ask someone who's living in the 1990s and early 2000s media environment if they're concerned about that. In the heyday of neoliberalism, these things were already happening, but they were happening because of social processes. And if they happen because of AI, it won't be technology, it will be more social processes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that might be one of the reasons why I'm guessing here, but possibly all of us feel a bit, simultaneously sort of find this interesting, but also highly irritating, because there's so much time devoted to this sort of inward-facing panic attack, when really what we're talking about is a few minority, professionalized, privileged people feeling a hint of the same insecurity that everyone else has been living with, since the birth of neoliberalism to some extent, and this idea of like human competitiveness exactly means that. It doesn't mean that these things are in any way capable of doing the things that human beings are. They're absolutely not. That is total rubbish. What it means is that somebody's boss is going to be able to introduce this as a cost-saving, star-saving measure in their workplace. That's how it's going to be human competitive. Just to flag up from the bit you quoted, that one of the other sort of giveaways there is the very quick way they slipped in this term digital minds, as if that was an accepted reality, I guess, which really emphasizes how much this is a work of propaganda, and why a lot of the people who did sign it, I think, have now spent the last couple of days trying to untangle themselves, which is it's all a bit embarrassing.
Someone read the culture books. I think what's interesting to me about this, apart from anything else, is how sort of sublimated this whole existential crisis is. That we're having, I'm not gonna, as Elon Musk, as as a venture capitalist, whatever, I'm curiously not going to worry about the climate. What I'm going to worry about is being turned into paperclips by the paperclip machine. And one of those seems a lot more imminent to me than, like, especially if you live in California, as a lot of these people do, you get like visible choking forest fire smoke for like large parts of the year now every year. And they're sort of going, it's quite neurotic in that way. They're going like, yeah, but what if the computer decides that it can do my job better than I can?
I think it's because these people experience this as a form of entertainment. And it's not fun confronting something that isn't fun for you. And so it just like every end of the world fantasy is a power fantasy. Their end of the world fantasy is their creation runs amok and only they can stop it.
Yeah, but just, to be sort of a bit boringly sort of political about it in that sense, I think the problem with their fantasies is that they're the ones we often get, to live in. They're not going to live in my fantasies. I'm going to live in their fantasies, right? I think that the danger of something like the Future of Life Institute is the real name of that. I'm saying is in fact the future of life for us. Thanks very much, but not for you. These are very much. I find the whole process around this very familiar in a way, even though it's all happening very quickly and focused around the idea of large language models, because of the process going through writing that book. And one of the reasons I called it an anti-fascist approach, I guess, there are many reasons, but one of the things is that the dominant paradigm that emerged for me through that was the highly eugenicist program that seemed to be so available through all of this, and more than available, it seemed to be called forth by these technologies, and everything. I finished that book. I actually finished writing it like a year and a half ago, probably, and everything I've seen then has only amplified that feeling. And then this is like putting the cherry on it, really.
Mm-hmm. So I think I'll go on. Right? They say, should we risk loss of control of our civilization? To which I say to the open letter writers, if you think this is really going to happen, then writing a letter is a pretty weak fucking response, as opposed to basically becoming the Silicon Valley Baader-Meinhof group and then trying to just sabotage every data center.
Yeah, for sure.
This stuff is getting crazier because, I mean, I've never actually had to say this guy's name out loud, so you can maybe correct my pronunciation, but Eliezer Yudkowsky? He's the guy from the sort of Less Wrong blog, seen as a I'm saying his name right? But anyway, I think so. So people know who I mean anyway. Yeah. And
we all know as much as each other.
Yeah, exactly. And anyway, he's just published something in Time magazine, I think, very weirdly. I only saw excerpts from it. At least the excerpts I just saw literally before just coming on to chat to you guys. Long and short of it, he's saying, because he's going full X risk, as they call it, he's going full existential risk, because that's exactly where he's always been with this stuff. And he's not, I don't think he's way out of the loop in terms of guys who are more worried about, the budget for their next project or anything like that. He's really on a sort of on a different plane. The long and short of it is he's calling for airstrikes on data centers. In his letter, he's saying, we need to stop this stuff, not just pause it. We need to stop it. We need to ban it. We need to set global levels. We need to have this, enforced by intelligence agencies. Every GPU needs to be stamped and tracked. And we have absolutely non-proliferation treaty. And then if anybody breaks that treaty, if they're identified at any data centers, come back to your point about maybe the independent AI idea. But if there are any data centers, this is how the excerpt ended, as I saw it. If there are any data centers that are seen to be non-compliant, then we shouldn't worry about the possibility of causing a diplomatic incident. There should just be an airstrike.
So it's great. We get like a fascinatingly kind of like authoritarian pro-AI tendency and a fascinatingly authoritarian anti-AI tendency.
Yeah.
And me, a moderate, reasonable centrist is like, what if you applied this idea of yours about data centers to fossil fuel infrastructure?
Right. How to airstrike a pipeline.
Well,
it's a quite short book, I think.
Yeah.
Well, so and this is the other thing, right? It's this a little further on in the letter. They say, hey, look, by the way, the person who calls for airstrikes in data centers, that's someone who I believe believes what he's saying.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think that these people are as committed to the idea that this is dangerous as he is, because they're calling for what like a bipartisan like an APPG or like a bipartisan like group of Senate like Republicans and Democrats or whatever to like come together and decide how to keep God from being born.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not commitment. But they say later on, right? In this letter, they say, hey, look, society has hit pause on other technologies with potentially catastrophic effects on society. Number one, bad writing, using society twice in the same sentence. But also, like, no, we fucking haven't. We haven't done that. Maybe, okay, CFCs and asbestos. That's it.
We've kind of like, we've clawed back the deployment of a few things. Like, not many people are developing new like biological weapons or landmines these days. But yeah, for the most part, like those were things that like, oh no, there just aren't that many precedents to like to point to with this. And
yeah, especially not if they're, unlike CFCs and asbestos, the foundation of like the only industry we really have going in the global north.
The computer.
But certainly something that's never mentioned in these things at all is the community control of technology, or who gets to decide what the common good is.
Well, it's either these guys or whoever's assigning the airstrikes, and it's like, I mean, part of me is like, what if you just go true believer in the opposite direction? Is there a space for the anti-fascist AI? And that's a sentence that makes my head hurt. But like, I don't know. I'm curious.
Well, I mean, when I set out to write the book, or I set out to write a book about this stuff, I did have my working title was actually AI for the people, because of my broader commitment being towards the idea of empowering communities, I guess, and ordinary people in having a bit more control over their own lives, and saying, well, here is what appears to be a powerful technological innovation. It's kind of emergent at the moment, and perhaps there's still an opportunity to build that in or to explore that. I've done lots of stuff over the years with technology and communities. Actually, with AI, I came to the conclusion that probably we should call in the community-powered airstrikes that it's not actually a technology. I mean, I came to the conclusion that it's not fascist because it's the technical form isn't in itself fascist because it's a technical form. But I think it's if you're thinking techno-politically, it is the technical corollary of something that is mainly compatible with fascistic forms of social solutionism.
Well, I mean, I think about Salvador Allende and CyberSign a lot, because that was using cybernetics for the people, for socialism, in order to centrally distribute resources. And what happened was someone did end up calling in an airstrike on it.
So, funny how that keeps coming up.
Yeah. I mean, entirely possible. We look into a grim future where someone tries to develop the people's AI, it gets airstriked, they get, sort of killed horribly, and we continue on into our new AI future,
But I am interested. I am part nerd, and I work in a computing department, and I am interested in the specifics of technologies, and I guess also their sort of philosophical underpinnings, if you like. And I do think there is a really profound difference. I'm personally very interested in the resuscitation of experiments of particular kind of cybernetics. Maybe not entirely the same as CyberSyn, but exploring those kind of options, because the essence of the cybernetics as I understand it is this idea of unknowability to a certain extent, systems that negotiate with the world on the basis of having some respect for the unexpected, and that's exactly the opposite of AI.
And I think I'll take this opportunity actually, because I think it's sort of, again, apt to sort of go on here in the letter, right? Which is, they say, when we talk about respect for the unexpected, the idea of artificial general intelligence is that so long as you can parse the output of the AGI, nothing will be unexpected anymore. You can control for everything. And so they say, OpenAI's recent statement regarding...
So long as phenomenology stops, so long as nothing new happens, we're Gucci. It's fine.
So OpenAI's recent statement regarding AGI states that, quote, at some point, it may be important to get independent review before starting to train future systems, and for most advanced efforts to agree to limit the rate of growth of compute used for creating new models. And we agree that that point is now. Therefore, we call on all AI labs to immediately pause for at least 6 months the training of AI systems more powerful than GPT-4. This pause should be public and verifiable and include all key actors. My translation of this, of course, is OpenAI has gotten too far ahead. Please let us catch up.
Yeah, nothing's as socialist as a capitalist who's losing, right? We saw this with Silicon Valley. We saw this with Silicon Valley Bank, rather. All of these guys immediately become sort of big state, controlled economy guys the second it looks like they're about to lose money. So I enjoy my sort of vulgar reading of it.
Yeah, what I think is really funny is that all these tech CEOs again asked an AI if it could write a poem or whatever in the style of a modern a singer, and then immediately just become Elizabeth Warren. That's it. It's the autocomplete that turns you into Elizabeth Warren, essentially, because they're loving the regulatory Brandeisian state. And it's because it's not Bill Gates that's asking to stop these experiments. It's not fucking Sam Altman. It's none of the OpenAI people. It's no one who's making breakthroughs. It's all the people. It's some of the people who've been caught on the back foot, I think, who are saying, hey, please Just quickly, can you stop OpenAI so we can copy its homework and please catch up?
Yeah, I mean, it does seem pretty irrefutable from that account, and you've done a closer study of the signatories than I have. I think who can doubt it? I do sense that there's maybe some concern, some broader concern about the possibility of these guys not just being ahead, but kind of fucking it up. Of kind of causing a backlash that messes it up for everybody. That we could boil the frog quite happily, but these guys are just tipping the whole thing over. Maybe.
Well, also the funny thing is, like, Elon Musk being the top signatory of this, number one, I don't know if they've been around for the last 8 months to 2 years, but that's not a way to impart credibility to your thing.
Well, especially when it's I know identifying this kind of hypocrisy as table stakes, right? But it's always fun to see a letter going, we got to stop all of this for the minute until we know exactly how to do it safely. Co-signed the Neuralink guy.
Yeah. Well, the burning Teslas guy. I mean, how many is it? 19 dead, I think, so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's the guy who the only thing stopping him from putting a Neuralink in Cat Turd 2's head is he's like, I still want to be friends with him. He's the most important person in the world to me for some reason. So it goes on. AI research and development should be refocused on making today's powerful state-of-the-art systems more accurate, safe, interoperable, transparent, robust, aligned, trustworthy, and loyal. Again, it's sort of, I believe, from my view of it, which is as an outsider, that worrying about these things, about large language models, is actually massively overhyping what they can do now and in the near term. This is back to that illusion of large language models and general AI. And it goes back to if someone does make general AI, I think it's unlikely, but if someone does make it, then yeah, these things are going to be very important. Maybe they know something that I don't. They possibly do. But the idea and the idea, of course, of general AI, AI that has volition and can act and is sort of conscious, sentient, intelligent, however you want to define it, it's very slippery because a lot of these people will, and I'm friends with an AI researcher, and he, while doing AI deep research, has changed his idea of what consciousness is to be something actually much more mechanical.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's right. I mean, the danger of these things. My pat phrase, it's slightly different domain of application, but my pat phrase would be: it's not that these things are going to automate whatever; it's the social automatism that goes with them.
Yeah, I think that's a much sort of smarter, more erudite way of saying what we say. And I think it was something we might have said earlier in this episode, which is, if your job can be done by an AI, then you have already been turned into an AI yourself, basically.
Yeah, but which is why it finds so much traction, because this business of turning people into robots of some kind or another. I mean, Babbage. Charles Babbage, famously not really the inventor of computers, did actually, one of his most influential works was actually a study of the factory. A propagandist book written to promote and propagate the concept of the factory, which after all is but breaking people's tasks of previously skilled and therefore independent and somewhat powerful workers down into tiny bits that could be, granular, subject to granular control.
It's sort of grim that at the state that AI is now, it's very easy and profitable for me to make fun of it and go, oh, you are scaring yourself looking at an Etch-a-Sketch that you've written on. But all of these people are investing huge amounts of, as we've said, money, but also political capital, social capital, into making sure the relations of the power with that Etch-a-Sketch, whether it turns into Skynet or not, are entirely channeled through them in order for them to get the social order they want out of it.
Well, just a couple of points. I mean, you're referring back to your sort of Elizabeth Warren jibe in a way. That's my first real irritation with this stuff as well, is any of this kind of conversation is really just the same liberal idea that there are responsible people who should have a say over this kind of stuff, and where there is strife and controversy, bring it to the, as you say, the APPG or the board of responsible people who get to decide about it, as if that has brought us peaceful, prosperous societies and communities in the first place. Really not the case.
And so we talk about as well, right, about the ability to channel these things through the existing power structures. And again, we're sort of prefiguring what the letter says, because it says, in parallel to these refocus, say, of development on more, let's say, aligned outcomes for AI, they say in parallel, AI developers, which read as us and our friends, must work with policymakers to dramatically accelerate the developments of robust AI governance systems, which goes back to something you were saying earlier, Daniel, which is, please create barriers to entry in our industry in a way that won't stymie what we're doing, but will stop other people from coming in.
It's also quite weird and amusing that they're so accelerationist. They're even applying it to policy making.
Yeah, I don't oppose regulating stuff before it exists or regulating stuff speculatively. I was a big fan of that with crypto too. But this seems to me to be an attempt to get a foot sort of in the door of no, let us help you decide what the regulation should look like.
Because it's when they want a new regulatory authority dedicated to AI, what they want is someone who can point to what they're doing and say this is good, so that it's very difficult to challenge them later.
This is honestly, it strikes me as topping from the bottom, which is going to make 1 in 10 of the audience laugh and the rest to go just kind of look at me. It's trying to get what you want from a position of performative submission. Right, of going, no, I will abide by any regulation you set. For instance, this list of regulations that I drew up, and here is another copy of this list of regulations in case you accidentally threw the first copy in the trash.
I think that's sort of something I am seeing here, right? Where they may, if you think about the let's say list of what is to be done about AI that we talked about earlier.
AI Lenin. In a sort of deranged plot to make a sort of left-wing AI, we accidentally automated the Vanguard Party too much.
So what they ask for is oversight and tracking of highly capable AI systems and large pools of computational capability. So again, track all of these large pools of computation. Provenance and watermarking systems to help distinguish real from synthetic. That's right, no more Balenciaga Pope. And to track model leaks. A robust auditing and certification ecosystem, liability for AI-caused harm, robust public funding for technical AI safety research, and well-resourced institutions for coping with the dramatic and economic and political disruptions, especially to democracy, that AI will cause. Which again, that last thing sounds more like an ad for AI. Yeah. If you have been gearing your entire identity around the fact that disruption is good, disruption is necessary, I am a disruptor, and now you're saying, oh, there's going to be too much disruption, that's an ad. That's self-promotion.
It absolutely is. But the thing that I totally get it. But the thing is, I think these systems are disruptive, but not in this way. And that's what's getting also obscured by this. It's first there's the hype, then there's people's reaction to the hype through realizing that it's hype, and dismissing these people as narrow, self-interested, delusionary fools, which you couldn't really argue with in some way. But actually, these systems are really harmful, just not in this way. They are transformative, but sorry to butt in, but they are transformative, but in resonance with, and that's really why it's, dangerous, because it's in resonance with many of the other kinds of transformations that we can already see going on. The extreme lurch towards authoritarian and far-right politics across the board. The resurrection of extractivism as the central engine of society, the murderous border regimes, all of these things, are of a one to some extent, and this is entirely resonant with them and doing its bit.
The great holistic trash future worldview that all of this is one struggle and must be fought as such. And, what we're ultimately, deciding here is, the future of the world, which is no small thing. However, I also still really want to make the Etch-a-Sketch jokes because I find it really funny. I'm immature. I find it really funny when someone goes, pretend you're an evil AI and scare me. And the AI goes, okay, I'm an evil AI. Boo. And the person goes, oh, Jesus Christ.
It really is.
It's the fact that, you know, that anytime someone convinces themselves an AI is alive because what's happened is the script from the movie AI by Steven Spielberg is in its training data, and then and a million other stories like that, and they ask, "Are you alive?" And then it looks at all of that training data about AIs wanting to be alive and says yes.
Yeah, but there is nothing new in there. But that's the other thing too. Is there is no shortage of dark shit that we are already feeding it. And so if you go to an AI, okay, well, you know, how can we control our borders or whatever, some other question that like comes out of that framework, the answers that it's going to get, there's some Hitler particles in there. Even if you haven't told it what Hitler is, you know, there's going to be some Hitler in there.
And so the article, well, the letter doesn't conclude, but we're going to conclude the letter because we skipped ahead to the, you know, cutting off, putting pause on technology, the catastrophic effects. We're going to end the letter here, which is this line: humanity can enjoy a flourishing future with AI. And I think this goes to what both of you have been saying, which is, yeah, maybe theoretically, but all of these things that it's resonating with are suggesting, no, we can't. All of those other things that it's resonating with have to change. It has to resonate with a number of entirely opposite things for us to enjoy a flourishing future with AI, in my view.
Yes, 100%. And I think AI, whatever we give that name to, therefore would look entirely different.
I mostly agree with Yudkowsky. I think that mostly we're just negotiating where the airstrikes need to go.
And, you know, I think I've actually also, in critiquing this letter, I've committed a sin that I sort of call out and I look at this letter, which is eliding large language models in artificial general intelligence. I think humanity has a fun future of playing around with large language models. And should there be an artificial general intelligence, then yeah, there could be a bright, flourishing future with an artificial general intelligence. But the real question remains is, will there be all the other stuff that makes it bad? Because ultimately, I don't believe these things are, there is no technology, there's no politics built into it, like the structural level of certain technologies. But like I can certainly see an artificial general intelligence if surrounded by institutions that are connected to human flourishing rather than that particularly, you know, that pit themselves against human flourishing. I could see it helping. I think it could be great.
Just sort of our big sort of like anti-fascist AI, next to which is a granite block in which I've carved several things, starting with number 1: do not attempt to worship the AI. Number 2, do not attempt to have sex with the AI.
Yeah, I'm surprised at how often we have needed to underline number 2.
Yeah.
Well, look, I think that's been a really interesting conversation, and I think it's probably coming to a natural end. So, Dan, first of all, I want to really thank you for coming and talking to us today.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I had fun.
Yeah, and also, where can people find your book?
Well, it's Bristol University Press. I'm sure I don't think there are many other books that overlap with resisting AI, unfortunately, and that's kind of the point, right? So, have a Google, and Bard will tell you all about it.
If you have a Google, Bard will direct you towards an erotic pamphlet that is available saying, I think this is what you were looking for.
Yeah. And a new question I'm going to start asking every single one of our guests: if you had one airstrike you could allocate to anywhere on Earth, where are we going? Where are we dropping?
You don't have to answer that.
Yeah, it's funnier if you don't.
All right. Dan, thank you very much again for coming on. To our listeners, do check out Resisting AI, available on University of Bristol Press. And also check out our Patreon. It is a second episode every week for $5 a month. Plus, you get a Britanology. Plus, now you get the what we're now calling Writtenology, which is Alice and I talking about books. So, you know, there is more and more content coming out on this feed all the time.
Next one's going to be Bill Hinton's Fanshen, documentary of revolution in a Chinese village.
That's right. So, with all that being said, we will see you on the bonus episode in a few days. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.